Okay, so yeah, welcome to my Kodama Livio deck tech in 10 or less. Yeah, I won't be going over every single card. I just feel I'll be going over what's important. I'll be starting off with just the commanders and a breakdown of their abilities and a deck summary. If you want just the deck tech, skip ahead. I'll leave a time card in the description. But yeah, let's just get started off with the commanders, and the architect list is in the description also if you're trying to see all of that. But it'll just be as you see it on the screen. Okay, so starting off with Kodama of the East Tree. Some of you already know about this commander here, but what we have is a CMC 6 or 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 and reach. With the ability that whenever another permanent you control enters the battlefield, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser mana value from your hand onto the battlefield, and it also has the partner ability. Alright, so basically, this commander alone will basically draw the higher of the rest of the table, but don't worry, we have some ways to protect our little combo tree, as you'll see in a bit. And then we're partnering Kodama with Livio the Oathsworn Sentinel, which is a CMC2 for 1 and 1 white for a 2/2 human knight with 2 abilities, with the first one being for 1 and a white. Choose another target creature, its controller may exile it with an Aegis counter on it, and then for 2 and a white and tap, we return all exiled cards with Aegis counters on them to the battlefield under their owner's control. Alright, so he's a cheap to cast commander and is built in a way to blink out creatures to get our ETB loops going or to dodge mean things. You know, what's not to love about him, alright? In any case, let's move on to our game plan. So our game plan is to get our commanders online and empty our hands of our creatures, abusing the ETB effects for value, disruption, and game finishing. So our main win condition is to have creatures on board with effects and then play or place a creature that on ETB exiles a number of creatures when it is on the board and brings them back when it leaves the battlefield. With our plethora of like blink instants and other ways to get our creatures to enter and leave, we can easily overwhelm our opponents on their turns, and then when it comes back to us, we turn them all sideways and beat face. Sounds fun. So naturally, with such a well-known combo piece in the command zone, we're running basically a lot of like protection and draw to ensure we get our game plan underway. Alright, so let's get started with our ramp and draw. So we've got the standard green ramp sorceries to get us going, as you can see on the screen on my left here. And yeah, we also have some creature-based ramp in the Yashan, which is down here, who grabs up to 2 lands on enter, which we can put one or both onto play if Kodama sees 2 things enter the battlefield at that time, which is quite nice. We also have our sad robot here, so Solemn Simulacrum, and Topiary Stomper right over here. You basically just grab us some lands. Sad robot, we already know what that does. If you don't know, just go ahead and read. Alright. Sakura Tribuilder, just for obvious reasons, just to get us some lands. You know, we try to play him early on if we can. And basically, we also have some enchantments, as we can see over here, so Seedborn Muse and other things like that. The whole reason we have those, they're not exactly ramp, but they let us untap our lands at the end of our turn. Basically, that fuels our game plan, so that we have all our mana open on other people's turns, so we can respond to whatever they're doing to get our ETB effects going on their turn when they're least prepared. With the draw side, we have a suite of creatures that draws us basically cards on their enter the battlefield effects. So, you know, we've got Wall of Blossoms, Wall of Omens doing the same thing more or less, and Spirited Companion and Inspiring Overseer also doing the same thing. Alright, a deck like ours likes to basically see or have its drawn creatures or enchantments that give us cards when creatures enter the battlefield. So things like Garruk's Uprising does the same thing as well. Guardian Project and Rite of Harmony also do the same thing. Rite of Harmony is quite nice because it's an instant, just for selesnya colors, and you know, it's just a cheap one to do so. Alright, so moving on, so we've got our main game plan, which is our blink enablers. Alright, so we have our cheap ones like Cloud Shift, Ephemerate, Flicker of Fate, and Ghostway, all doing the same thing, more or less, that being blinking our creatures at instant speed, allowing us to get ETB effects and Kodama triggers. So our all-star creature in this category is Lumbering Battlement right here, which on ETB exiles any number of our target creatures, getting +2/+2 for each one until it leaves the battlefield. You can already see where we're going to go with this. Basically, With our aforementioned cheap flicker instance and other creatures that I'll show you in a bit, we should be able to get, do some certified ETB shenanigans, more or less. All right. We've got another one here called a Restoration Angel, which is over here, right here. Basically does the same thing as Lumbering Battlement. We need to have that sort of redundancy, alright? So just more ways to get our snowball rolling. Panharmonicon is pretty self-explanatory, just being able to double up our triggers. We have to see it, Teleportation Circle, another great one. It's an enchantment, so basically we can place it off of a Kodama trigger. Rarely in this deck you'll be paying the cost of things. You just end up placing it. It's like a happy accident. You'll see what I mean if you play the deck. Alright. Now, moving on to our protection, which is a great part here. So, basically onto our protection removal and creature all-stars. So we're going to start off with our protection, alright? So, Swift Boots, for obvious reasons, I usually slot it on Kodama, but you can put it on Livio as the time arises. Hexproof Haste, what's not to love about that? Mainly for the Hexproof though, alright? Bastion Protector and Guardian Augmenter, great creatures, alright? For a cheap cost of 3. Bastion Protector gives us +2/+2 and indestructible on our commanders, which is great, and also Guardian Augmenter on a flash body. I need to highlight that, gives us +2/+2 and hexproof on our commanders. So it's on creatures. What's not to love about that? We can also protect these with our flicker spells. So if people are trying to target those to get to our commanders, we can just flicker them out, put them back, and you can use that to dodge whatever they're trying to do to interrupt us here. Alright, Eerie Interlude and Semester's End, basically they serve both as blink and protection, but just keep in mind you basically won't have a field until the next end step hits with some of these, so I tend to use those to dodge wipes or some targeted removal, but just make sure you're careful with it. White Mane Lion also serves as an instant speed return a creature to hand spell on a creature, which is lovely for us, alright? Stonehawk Dignitary is also a great card here. Basically what it does is on ETB you can target a player and they have to skip their next combat phase, which is just amazing. So if you've got that one big player with a big alpha strike coming, you can just play this, target them. They can't have their combat, so you and everyone gets to live another day, more or less. And obviously we can loop this. So yeah, what else is there to say about that, you know what I mean? So Glorious Protector is also an auto-include in my humble opinion, alright? What that does is basically an instant flicker spell that we can foretell for cheap. So she's quite similar to Lumbering Battlement in the sense that when she leaves the field, she'll bring back all the creatures she exiled on our side, so you already know what we can get up to with that. Alright, so moving on to our removal suite now. Alright, we have a few classics in here, so they'll be down here. That being Austere Command and Slash the Ranks, just our typical government mandated board wipes, more or less. Austere Command's actually quite nice though, since we have some flexibility with it, so if we need to get rid of enchantments, things like that, you already know what to do. We've got some artifact / enchantment removal in Acidic Slime, Reclamation Sage, and Bane of Progress. Obviously be mindful that some of these hit our own things, but as long as you have some decent threat assessment, you'll get your value out of these, no problem. Looping Bane of Progress is pretty funny. I'll just add that. Alright, Terastodon is also quite nice in here, or being just a big body that we can cast. We usually end up placing for free off Kodama and his removal. It's quite nice because it just says non-creature permanent, so we can hit planeswalkers if we need to. Anything that's not a creature, more or less, he hits 3 of those. And sure, they do get an elephant out of it. It's a good trade, alright. Kogla and Palace Jailer, they both serve as ways to deal with creatures. So Kogla on ETB fights a creature we don't control. With stats like him, he tends to win. And Jailer just straight up exiles a creature we don't control and gives us Monarch status. Of course, if our opponents get Monarch back, the creature goes back to them, but it's just a nice little spot removal. And of course, like I said, looping that is crazy. Alright, now onto our creature all-stars. These are my creatures that I just feel are auto-includes, or that I just felt were very important to include in the deck. They don't really fit the categories that I had set out so far. So let's get started. We've got Titan of Industry over here, okay? Now, what's not to like about this big guy? A Reacher and a Trampler with a suite of ETB abilities, which we can choose 2 of each, right? Every time he enters the battlefield. Now, me personally, I always go for the last one. That just basically it puts a shield counter on a creature we control, which a shield counter, think of it as totem armor more or less, for free. So if we loop this, we can protect everything. Alright, and also I like the fact that it gives us options. As you can see on the screen, we can destroy target artifact or enchantment, we can gain 5 life, we can create a 4/4 green rhino creature token. So, you know, looping this, need I say more? Okay, now this deck here is also blessed enough to have cheap tutors that we can loop. Their own creature bodies, they're on the screen right here, Fierce Empath and Woodland Bellower. Alright, so we're going to start off with Fierce Empath, which on ETB searches our library for CMC 6 or greater to reveal, and we could put it into our hand, and we can search any sort of big hitter or disruptor, and with some Kodama shenanigans we can basically get to put them into play on the same turn, which is quite nice. One of the best targets for Fierce Empath is Woodland Bellower, alright, so which on point ETB can put a CMC 3 or less creature from our library straight into play, which is absolutely ridiculous because basically if we have Kodama online, we could just double up, right? We just empty our hands and get things started. So from here I'll be showing off a few valid targets off of these two tutors. One great one that we want in play early-ish is Soul of the Harvest, which is right over here. Alright, so he's just a big body with trample that whenever we play another creature that's not a token, we get a draw off of that, which is quite nice. It's a May effect, so you know, if we're going to draw ourselves out off of him, we can just choose not to do it. You know, that's also great. Our all-star finisher, Enrace Forerunners, great card. You can run Crater Hoof if you have it, but this is what I have. Packed with nice keywords, he gives our whole board a pump of +2/+2 and vigilance and trample to end the turn. So, you know, easy alpha strike finisher off the top, and we can search this, bear in mind, with Fierce Empath. Alright, so whenever we need it, we can just loop Fierce Empath, grab him, and then put him into play, which is amazing. Alright, another one that I think is quite interesting is Thragtusk. Now, his Enter the Battlefield effect is quite mediocre, but it's mainly his leave effect, which I quite like. So when he leaves, he makes a 3/3 green beast, so, you know, in us doing our flickering stuff, we can just make a board for no reason, and we gain some life if you care about that. Another interesting one that we have is Gilrain, Doomdagging Protector. I didn't mention it earlier, but basically I see her as a secondary commander. So for 2 and a tap, we can exile another target creature you control and return it onto the battlefield under our control, or we can wait and return it at the end step. And if we do that, it gets a Vigi counter and a lifelink counter, which is quite nice. Running another card I'll show you later that cheapens the cost, alright? So that's that right there.